Hello, my name is Dr. Adigo and welcome to Persomic, where we take control of our health in order to live long and to live well. Here is the beautiful Ernestine Shepherd, who is a wonderful example of aging extremely well. Today we're looking at muscle health and its importance for living a long and healthy life. We'll cover lifestyle factors that help you build muscle and which micronutrients to focus on. What happens to our muscles as we age? How is it that we go from being vibrant and strong to being weak and fragile? Did you know that we lose 1 to 2% of muscle mass every year starting at a particular age? At what age do you think this happens? From 30 years of age, we begin to lose muscle mass. Shockingly, this happens twice as quickly for men as for women. And as we lose muscle mass, we also lose strength. From every decade, from the age of 30, we lose 10 to 15% of leg strength. And as we get older, the rate of loss increases. So, both muscle mass and muscle strength reduce as we age. The loss can be so bad that we develop a condition called sarcopenia. This is when our muscles are so weak that we slow down our pace of walking to less than 1 meter per second. Why does this happen? Why do we lose muscle? Many changes occur as we get older. We digest food more slowly. We absorb fewer nutrients. We break down protein more quickly. We are less active. Our hormone levels fall, testosterone in men, estrogen in women. And alongside these changes, we develop chronic diseases. One process, more than the others, is central to the decline. It's a process called oxidative stress. Here is a drawing of a human cell. The purple labels are routine pathways that occur within the cell. These pathways produce a type of molecule called reactive oxygen species. As the name suggests, reactive oxygen species are highly reactive. They damage molecules and structures that they come into contact with. Over time, damage to structural proteins, enzymes, and DNA accumulates and causes dysfunction of membranes, tissues, organs, and the immune system. So, we see that oxidative stress alongside inflammation and injury are processes that drive muscle deterioration. But is this decline inevitable? Is it possible to move in the other direction? Even if it is possible, why bother to keep muscles healthy? Because every time our muscles contract, every single time, we release compounds called myokines into the circulation. These myokines travel around the body and set off a series of effects that keep us healthy, including keeping skin elastic so that we look young, supporting nerve regeneration in the brain, which reduces the risk of dementia, stimulating brown fat metabolism, which leads to burning calories more quickly. Myokines regulate immune function, insulin production, glucose availability during exercise, bone formation, blood supply to our organs. So, by keeping our muscles healthy, we gain all of these effects. So, now we know why it's important to keep muscles healthy. What does this involve? Instead of losing muscle, we can keep our muscles conditioned, and we can even increase the amount of muscle we have. Losing muscle is not inevitable. There is another way. This is Charles Euchster. At the age of 85, he looked in the mirror and didn't like what he saw, so he decided to do something about it. He started lifting weights and also competed in rowing, athletics, and fitness championships for his age group. He kept active right up until his death at the age of 97. If you get a chance, do listen to his TED Talk titled Why Bodybuilding at Age 93 is a Great Idea. It's very inspiring. And here is the wonderful Chef Babette pictured at age 70. From poverty, abuse and addiction in her early life, Chef Babette started training at age 40. When she turned 72 last year, she celebrated by doing 100 push-ups in front of her customers at her vegan restaurant in Inglewood, California. Charles and Chef Babette are two examples of looking after muscle health and aging well. There are many others, including Ernestine Shepherd, who we saw at the start of the presentation, Takashima Mika, and more. If they can do it, so can you. So now we know that it's worthwhile to keep our muscles healthy, and we know that it's possible to do so. How then do we condition our muscles? An obvious answer is to exercise, specifically to do resistance training. If we want to not only keep muscle, but build muscle, then we also need to weightlift. That's lifting weights. But resistance training and weightlifting are just two pieces in a bigger puzzle. There are many lifestyle factors that impact muscle health. Can you think of a few? The food we eat, getting enough sleep, managing stress, limiting exposure to harmful chemicals, and compensating for genetic weaknesses are all important for muscle health. Take this real-life example of two different populations. In one case, the rate of sarcopenia is 31% for women and 53% for men. In the other case, the rate is much lower, 21% for women and 26% for men. This data is for Caucasian and Taiwanese populations. The Taiwanese have much lower rates of sarcopenia than the Caucasians. Why is this? The answer is likely a combination of all 6 lifestyle factors. So let's take a brief look at some of these factors. Here is a scientific review that highlights what happens when we don't get enough sleep. Our cortisol level rises. Cortisol is a stress hormone. A rise in cortisol lowers protein production in muscles. So not getting enough sleep makes it hard to build muscle. In another review, we see that exposure to harmful chemicals generates reactive oxygen species and interferes with energy production. We take in harmful chemicals through the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, and the products we use. Mitochondria are cell organelles that produce energy. They are highly sensitive to chemical damage. Moving on, let's take a close look at food. How does what we eat impact muscle health? A scientific review of sarcopenia reports 3 points of focus for nutritional protection. I imagine that most of us have heard that protein is important for building muscle. How about antioxidants and vitamin D? Remembering that oxidative stress is a key process in muscle damage, it makes sense that antioxidants that mop up reactive oxygen species are protective against muscle damage. Vitamin D is one example of an antioxidant. It repairs damage to cell membranes. When vitamin E is low, membranes are not repaired and cell function deteriorates. So, how can we get a good supply of antioxidants? Here are 3 strategies. Dr. Joel Fuhrman developed the Aggregate Nutrient Density Index, or ANDI for short. It measures the amount of micronutrients per calorie of food. The higher the score, the greater the nutrient density. Foods with a high ANDI score are packed with nutrients, including antioxidants. Here we see that the highest scoring foods are dark green leafy vegetables such as watercress, kale and spring greens. Overall, of all food groups, vegetables are most nutritious, then fruits and seeds, then nuts, grains and animal products. Least nutritious are refined and processed foods, for example, oil, ice cream and soda. Therefore, eating lots of vegetables and fruits ensures an abundant supply of antioxidants. Aim to eat at least 9 to 13 servings a day. Another strategy uses the very helpful colour coding system provided by nature. Antioxidant chemicals have different colours, and each colour family has a complementary function. So, getting the most benefit from antioxidants requires that we eat vegetables and fruits of all different colours. Here's a handy checklist to help you keep track. You can stick it on your fridge and mark off the colours each day. If you'd like an electronic copy, send me an email to checklist@persomic.com. A final strategy to boost antioxidant supply is to avoid consuming harmful chemicals. This farm worker is spraying a field of spring greens with pesticides and herbicides, wearing protective clothing to protect against the chemicals. Yet, we ingest these same chemicals when we eat the food that's grown in this way, because the sprayed chemicals are absorbed by the leaves and taken up through the roots of the plants, so they do not wash away completely. Once in our bodies, these harmful chemicals produce reactive oxygen species that cause oxidative stress. Organic food does not contain these harmful chemicals. Therefore, eating organic reduces our exposure and protects our muscle function. Now, let's move on to vitamin D and its role in muscle health. On the right is an illustration of muscle and its surrounding structures. At the bottom, there are two types of muscle fibers, type 1 and type 2. At the edge of one muscle fiber, we see a satellite cell, which is a muscle stem cell. Within each muscle fiber, there are nuclei which contain DNA, the genetic material of cells. Next to the muscle fibers is the extracellular matrix. Down the middle of the picture, there is a nerve cell supplying the muscle, and the blue-grey tube is a blood vessel. Vitamin D interacts with muscle by first being transported to muscle from the liver in blood vessels. It arrives in an inactive form. Inactive vitamin D enters muscle fibers and is activated by an enzyme called cytochrome P450-27B1. Activated vitamin D then binds to the vitamin D receptor within the muscle fiber. In turn, the bound receptor binds to DNA in the nucleus and controls gene expression and the production of proteins. In this way, vitamin D is central to protein synthesis. Why is this important? It's important at 3 levels: within muscle fibers, the extracellular matrix, and satellite cells. Let's look at each in turn. Here is a junction between a nerve cell and a muscle fiber. Don't worry about the detail. To illustrate the importance of protein synthesis, we are going to follow just a single protein called spectrin, circled in red. When a nerve signal arrives, spectrin is activated. Then, activated spectrin leads to the activation of another protein called actin, circled in blue. Actin is a very important protein for muscle contraction. The sequence of protein activation depends on these proteins being present in the first place, and the production of these proteins is under the control of vitamin D. How about the extracellular matrix? This is the layer that surrounds the muscle fibers. The function of the extracellular matrix is to support the growing muscle fibers and to transmit force. In the picture, we see many different proteins that are necessary for the extracellular matrix to do its job. Finally, how does protein synthesis impact satellite cells? You'll remember that the satellite cell is a muscle stem cell. It has the potential to produce new muscle fibers and add nuclei to existing muscle fibers. Proteins act as chemical signals to turn on the process of differentiation, and proteins are the building blocks for the new muscle fibers as differentiation occurs. In this way, vitamin D-controlled protein synthesis regulates muscle regeneration. Before leaving vitamin D, there is a special case that's worth highlighting. Of the 3,000 genes influenced by the vitamin D receptor, only 50% are regulated by vitamin D, which means that the vitamin D receptor has activity that is independent of vitamin D. This scientific study explores the mechanisms of independence. It finds that the vitamin D receptor binds to an organelle called a ribosome, which is an assembly line for protein production within the cells. When the vitamin D receptor binds to ribosome, it increases the capacity for protein production. So, it's important to take care of the vitamin D receptor as well as getting enough vitamin D. Ways to increase the vitamin D receptor include regular resistance training and increasing vitamin D intake. Now that we appreciate the importance of vitamin D in muscle function, let's look at the impact of improving vitamin D status. This scientific review of athletes between the ages of 18 and 45 reports that taking between 600 and 5,000 international units of vitamin D per day increased muscle strength by 18%. In this study, women with limited mobility above the age of 65 were given 4,000 international units of vitamin D per day for 4 months. They showed an increase in the size of muscle fibers and the number of vitamin D receptors. So, here are 3 practical ways to make the most of vitamin D. First up is regular resistance training to up-regulate the vitamin D receptor. Next is regular sunshine, a natural source of vitamin D. It takes approximately 30 minutes in the sun with bare arms and legs to get a good daily dose. And if there's no sun, or if you're not getting out in the sun, then think about taking a vitamin D supplement. We've taken time to understand mechanisms that support muscle health. By doing so, we're empowering ourselves to take control of our health, and we're getting clearer to help us make decisions. Chef Babette took control of her health, and you can too. Notice the large amount of vegetables and fruits on her plate, and the rainbow of colours. You don't have to be a bodybuilder or be able to do 100 push-ups, but start somewhere and build up. I recently started practicing push-ups. From being able to barely do 5, I can now do 20. You can do the same. Set a daily goal and be consistent. What are our takeaways from our time together today? First, what lifestyle factors can we use to improve our muscle health? Pay attention to what we eat, get plenty of rest, be physically active, manage stress, and avoid harmful chemicals. Next, which micronutrients should we focus on? Antioxidants and vitamin D. And finally, how can we increase our supply of these micronutrients? For antioxidants, eat 9 to 13 servings of vegetables and fruits per day, eat a rainbow diet, and eat organic food. For vitamin D, get regular sun, consider taking a vitamin D supplement, and include resistance training in your daily activities. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. If you'd like to see more videos like this, then like, comment, share, and subscribe. Once again, my name is Dr. Adigo, here to empower you to take control of your health. Until next time, goodbye.